Hello, I am Ashton Hamrick and I'm doing my safety presentation over health hazards in construction. I was unable to find the resources to use a screen or a projector due to all the buildings closing down of all state. So to show my PowerPoint and my video, this is the best way that I found for me to be able to do this. So health hazards in construction. These There are many work practice controls that are supposed to be followed when you work with hazards in construction. The first one would be change existing work practices to follow proper procedures to minimize exposure when operating with equipment on the job site. Inspecting and maintaining uh, the equipment on a regular basis. This could be hydraulic lines, oil changes, making sure that everything on the saw is running properly, nothing's loose, nothing needs tightened up. Um, Implementing good housekeeping procedures and providing good supervision on the job site. So with health hazards, there's a lot of job hazards, and these can be classified as air containments, chemical hazards, biological hazards, physical hazards, and ergonomic hazards. And I will explain these more in depth. So air containments can be considered as a particulate or a gas and vapor containment. The most common are dust, fumes, mists, and fibers. Dust are solid particles, and these are caused by breaking, crushing, or cutting of materials like rock, metal, wood, and which we will be getting into a bunch in our careers in the future. Um, these are smaller particles that are more dangerous than the larger particles because they have an easier access to reach the lungs and cause damage to the body. And like shown on the right here is a cyclone dust control, which collects the particles in the air um, and sucks those all up so they are not floating in the air and you're not inhaling them. And a lot of places have these that are dealing with these particles. Like my grandpa had his pallet business and he had one of these running all times when he was running his saws, and that was mostly every day. So this was always running and collecting all the dust particles. The next one is fumes. These are caused by welding, metallizing, and arc welding. And arc welding causes the most fumes. These are extremely small, so they are easily inhaled. And with fumes, there are other toxic fumes that include those when you are welding materials with lead-based paints or you're welding galvanized metal. And these can get in the body and cause severe toxicity, which is caused by not proper ventilation or respiratory protection, which should be always followed by PPE. Next one is mist. This can be caused from the oils produced from cutting or grinding, and then acid mist are caused by electroplating. And the other mists that are caused are the spray mist from a spray finishing booth when you're working with wood or anything like that. Like high schools have workshops and they have a paint booth or a finishing booth that has a ventilation system that collects all the fumes and mist or the mist from these spray guns. And the last one is fibers, and these are the solid particles that are larger than dust. These include fiberglass, asbestos, and fibrous talc, and these can be caused by fabrication, demolition, and even be caused by mining. So chemical hazards are compounds that can be in the form of solids, liquids, or gases, and also mist, dust, fumes, vapors. These toxic effects can be caused through inhalation, absorption, or ingestion. Some of these can be toxic through inhalation, but others toxic by the irritation of the skin on contact. That could be very corrosive to living tissue, and this is more important when there is an open wound on your body, and these chemical hazards can reach inside your body very quickly and get to your blood cells even quicker than it would if you didn't have any cuts or if it was just irritation. And the toxicity of these depends on how long your body is exposed to these from the chemical straight to the skin. So it all depends how long those chemicals have been on your body or have been uh, corrosive to your tissue. Biological hazards, these include bacteria, viruses, fungi, and any other living organisms that are actually able to enter inside of your body and cause many infections. Workers should practice their proper personal hygiene. They should be using proper ventilation and also following the personal protective equipment and using disposal systems and any appropriate controls to minimize the hazards of these biological chemicals. And then physical hazards, these include radiation, noise, vibration, illumination, or even from temperature. Um, Time, distance, and shooting are big proper techniques to ensure the safety of all of these physical hazards. Noise is a big one and can be controlled by installing equipment that are built to operate quietly, making sure that there's no vibration, and making sure that the equipment is up to date on maintenance. And then you could also mount special items on these equipment like mounts to reduce vibration or install silencers or mufflers to make these machines or equipment not as noisy. And then when you're in an area, floors, ceilings, and walls can be treated by installing sound barriers or like in this picture shown here, it's an acoustical ceiling. And with physical hazards, OSHA requires that people involved working in a noisy and surrounding area be tested periodically, just so as a precaution against hearing loss. Just so if they are starting to produce hearing loss, then they can get these techniques to and use these techniques to make sure that this hearing loss is not being caused anymore to anybody else working in that area, or the person is not going to become and get more hearing loss. Ergonomic hazards. This is everything that involves the lifting, holding, walking, pushing, or even reaching for something. Um, and when you're doing this, vibration and noise, and even eye strain, uh, motion, and heavy lifting are all big factors of these hazards. Repetitive motions can cause a lot of inflammation or irritation to your body if you're doing the same thing for the full amount of day of your job and you're not changing in any of your the way you do it, or you're not using the proper way to do it. And this can cause uh, the carpal tunnel syndrome, which a lot of people know of, and it just causes a lot of pain in your hands and anywhere in your body. Um, Ergonomic hazards can be controlled by using the correct engineering controls, teaching correct work practices, and providing personal protective equipment, which is PPE. And then some people in job sites or any other type of work area, they they shift workers and offer breaks. So these people that are doing these repetitive motions get a break from their body and aren't going to be in pain and have carpal tunnel or anything like that being caused. So routes of entry, they are routes of entry for a toxic material to be effective, it must come into contact with the body, and this can be through inhalation, absorption, or ingestion. And I have a video of a toolbox talk that explains these routes of entry pretty well. So we'll just watch this.
This week's safety toolbox is about routes of entry. Routes of entry into our human bodies. We come out on the job sites, we're working at home, we're working in areas that may be full of silica dust where we're breathing it in. Maybe somebody's grinding on lead-based paint and we're breathing that in. Or we're working with solvents such as gasoline and or starter fluids, lighter fluids, maybe some type of strippers, so on and so forth. And OSHA actually realizes that a lot of times we're not really paying much attention to the environment that we're working in, and then again, what we're working with. And did we ask ourselves these three questions? What am I working with? How can it hurt me? And how do I protect myself? Anything that we breathe in that's a particulate on our job sites ends up in our lungs. And after many, many, many years, we end up with these chronic lung infections. We should be protecting ourselves with engineering controls, ventilation, maybe substituting the product with another product that is user-friendly, and then, of course, last but not least, personal protective equipment. How many of us have washed our hands with gasoline? Or maybe when we're lighting our charcoal, we get this charcoal fluid on our hands. Do you understand that your skin is like a sponge? This is going right through my skin and into my bloodstream. In turn, ends up in my organs of my body. And after continually doing that for years, I end up with spots on my inner organs and or body complications. How many of us have stepped on a rusty nail and maybe have gotten an infection or had to obviously go in for a tetanus shot? There are many ways, breathing it in, maybe getting something in our eyes, our ears, ingesting it, that these things could enter our bodies and harm us. And we need to be aware of what we're working with and how to protect ourselves. Personal hygiene is another way to protect yourself. If I'm working with an epoxy or a caulk or a stripper or a cleaner and I'm not wearing protective gloves, and I sit down to eat my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I could very well be ingesting the components that I'm working with and harming my inner body. So let's think about what we're doing, how to protect ourselves using engineering controls, and let's have a safe week, okay? Thank you.
So that was a good video explaining in depth on the actual on a job site on other ways that you can get routes of entry and how they're caused. So inhalation includes all the contaminants that can be inhaled into the lungs, and these can be classified as gases, vapors, or any particulate matter that could be dust, fumes, smokes, and this is one of the most important routes of entry because when the chemical absorbs in the lungs, it can pass through the bloodstream, reach the brain, and that's a very quick process. Absorption is the more effective route of entry if the skin is either cut or wide open. The skin does have a good barrier to chemicals, but like in the video said, your hands and your skin is like a sponge when it gets to that barrier, so the chemicals have a very easy time to absorb and get in your bloodstream. Other chemicals can be absorbed through your hair follicles and openings. Uh, like in the summer, this could be a big deal when you're sweating and your pores are opened up. Chemicals have a very easy way to absorb through your skin, or these chemicals can absorb into your fats and oils of the skin, and these could be components of lead or any other type of component like that. Absorption through the eyes and skin is the second most important route of entry when it comes through absorption. Ingestion, this could be eating or drinking harmful chemicals, and this is mostly caused when workers leave drinks or containers out on the work site where the chemicals or fumes, dust, it can be easily placed into those containers or cans or anything that the worker is drinking or eating. It's also ingestion is also caused when workers not wash their hands, and then other ways. I mean, toxic dust can also be ingested in the amounts that can cause a lot of trouble to the body, because when you ingest, it goes right into the body, and then everything reaches your insides, and if it's a toxic material, it will cause problems. So lastly, I have a video of health hazards in construction, and this is a video on the job site that relates to many of the topics that I went over in this video. So we'll watch this video, and then if anybody has any questions or anything, just contact me after.
I'm Sylvie Hudon, medical consultant for the Ministry of Labor. Cleanup and toilet facilities are probably the last place you would look for hazards on a construction site. In most workplaces, we take hand washing for granted. It's not always easy to keep clean on a construction project. The best advice is to wash your hands with soap and water regularly. Never eat, drink, or smoke without washing your hands first, and report unsanitary conditions to your supervisor or employer. Some of the infectious diseases you can contract in a construction site are Legionella from standing water, mold and fungi from contaminated soil, E. coli that is resting on objects and surfaces, Salmonella from contaminated food, Listeria from contaminated soil, water, or food, Hepatitis A from contaminated food from unwashed hands, and norovirus from unwashed hands. There are also parasites that workers can be exposed to. These include Cryptosporidium and Giardia. Washing hands properly can go a long way to reducing the amount of bacteria we can pass on to other people.
I'm here to do a proactive inspection of the construction site here. Today I'm going to be looking specifically at what kind of toilet facilities and hygiene practices we have on site. I'm Kim McLaughlin, an Occupational Health and Safety Inspector with the Ministry of Labor, Central Region East. Inadequate toilet and cleanup facilities are a major cause of the spread of infectious diseases to construction workers and their families. We want to raise awareness among suppliers, constructors, employers, supervisors, and workers about the hazards of poor hygiene and the spread of infectious diseases. How many workers do you have on this site?
37 workers, yeah.
Do you know how many toilet facilities you have on this project and where they're located? They should provide for adequate toilet facilities relevant to the number of workers that are regularly employed on the construction project. Inspectors are looking for compliance with sections 29 through 30 of the construction regulation in Ontario. The constructors are responsible to arrange for facilities to be on site before work begins. Has the constructor provided education to workers on this project about hand hygiene and the spread of infectious diseases?
Yes, of course.
And is there running water and soap available for workers at this project?
For sure.
Facilities need to be located 180 meters horizontally on a project from where work is taking place. In high-rise, facilities need to be located within 9 meters, about 3 stories from where workers are doing work. A proper facility should have a basin with running water, both hot and cold water where reasonably possible. The combination of both hot and cold water can be acceptable. There must be hand towels or a hand dryer. In portable single toilets intended for male use only, there needs to be a urinal. If it's a multiple toilet facility, there needs to be 1 cleanup facility for every 2 toilets. Where there are multi-unit facilities on site, there needs to be a separate facility for both males and females. Both non-sewer flush and sewer toilets can be used on a construction site. Each toilet facility shall be illuminated with natural or artificial light and adequately vented or heated. In the winter months, toilets need to be heated to about 10 degrees Celsius to make it comfortable for the user.
Non-sewer toilets are to be equipped with a trap or positive seal. Toilets that are not equipped with a trap would be in contravention of the regulation, and the Ministry will take enforcement action.
Employers and constructors are to ensure that toilets are regularly cleaned and sanitized. The schedule should be posted and made available for an inspector on an inspection. Supervisors are required to inspect the facilities on a regular basis and to respond to workers' feedback. And how would workers go about reporting concerns on the state of the hygiene facilities in the project?
We have our site office phone number posted on the wall in every facility, and they can give us a call if there's any concerns.
Where workers are handling corrosive, poisonous, or other substances that may endanger their health, under Section 30, it is required that they have running water, soap, and towels to clean up.
I'm Craig Laurie. I'm an infection control consultant with the Ministry of Labor.
Nice to meet you.
We're here to do a proactive inspection of this construction project. MOL inspectors may be accompanied by specialized services during a proactive or reactive inspection. Specialized services can include industrial hygienists, infection control consultants, or a medical consultant. Okay, so tell me what kind of cleanup facilities you have for workers that are handling toxic or corrosive substances on this project. In a situation where an inspector observes non-compliance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulation, an order can be issued for compliance. Do your part in keeping the washrooms clean at the work site. Preventing the spread of infectious diseases is a shared responsibility. For more information, please visit these websites.
Again, that's a great video that outlines more health hazards in construction on the actual job site that I couldn't show in my video. And I just wanted to give that to you guys to be able to watch, but that is everything I have for this video. Thank you for watching.